restless dreams, I see that town. Silent Hill.
I got a letter. The name on the envelope said Mary, my wife's name. Mary died of that damn disease 3 years ago. So then why am I looking for her? Could Mary really be here?
Silent Hill 2: The Remake. As someone who has never played any of the Silent Hill games, I am disappointed in myself that I never got into the series earlier. To be fair, when the first game came out, I wasn't even born then. By the time Silent Hill 2 was released, I was only a year old. But this is the game I want to focus on today. If you ask anyone who is a fan of Silent Hill, they'll likely say the second game was the best, which makes sense why they would remake the second game first before testing the waters with the others. Silent Hill is a psychological horror, focused on mundane characters that experience their past sins, grief, and terrors in the form of monsters or other hallucinations within a fictional town named Silent Hill. It's like a psychological purgatory to judge or redeem those it calls. It focuses on the worst parts of our human nature, and I think the most disturbing horror games are ones that don't stray far from reality. In Silent Hill 2, we focus on the story of James Sunderland. 3 years ago, James lost his wife Mary to an unnamed disease, but recently received a letter from her, calling him back to the town they loved so dearly. And so we venture through Silent Hill, uncovering the mysteries behind Mary's absence, diving deep into the psyche of both James and the town's inhabitants. James is a disturbed character. He seems normal on the outside, but as the town eats away at him, his true nature is revealed. I have been waiting desperately for an excellent horror game to come out, especially after Zoocosis, because that game was utter garbage. And it's October, I gotta get my spook on, so safe to say I got what I wanted. I'm here to dive deep into the game's story, meaning, and my experience with it, because that's what I like to do. To clarify, this is also an episode of Horror Quest, where we embark on a journey to find the best and scariest horror games. But this also classifies for my long video essay playlist, so I'm just gonna knock 2 birds with 1 stone. We'll get to the score at the very end. Alright, I think that about does it for the intro. So, without further ado, my name is Josh, also known as Gorgiana, and I hope you enjoy. The game begins with James Sunderland arriving at Silent Hill. He's inside a filthy bathroom, touching his face and hand, almost as if he's checking to make sure he's real. It gives us a subtle insight into James' deteriorating mind. After playing the game, this is one of my favorite cutscenes. It sets the tone for a mysterious, horrific adventure perfectly. So many questions are presented that the player wants answered immediately. Again, I never played Silent Hill 2, so I have no idea what's going on. I wanted to know how James received a letter from his supposed dead wife, who's been gone for 3 years. It's a really good hook. This opening scene also has some dire implications that we'll get into later. The graphics of this game are to be praised first and foremost. The Bluebird team did a fantastic job of recreating one of the most iconic horror games from the early 2000s. The fog is an essential part to this tale, and it is done beautifully. I've seen gameplay from the original Silent Hill 2, and older games will always have that charm to them, especially horror games. That grimy, dull atmosphere can't ever be replicated perfectly, even with all the new technology at our disposal. Still, the remake does a great job in recreating that atmosphere. What really surprised me here the most was the music. There's something almost angelic about this soundtrack. It's haunting yet mesmerizing. Forgive me if I pronounce this incorrectly, but Akira Yamaoka really knows how to transport you into another world with his musical talents. He was also the composer for the original Silent Hill 2, so it's nice to have him back. It sounds very early 2000s. I grew up during this time, so this really hit me in my early childhood, personally. It's great that they stuck to the original soundtrack and didn't stray far from the original formula. As we walk into the graveyard, we promptly scare the first person we see. Meet Angela, a young girl who was also called to Silent Hill. She mentions that she's looking for her father and brother, hoping to find them here, but no luck. James then asks for directions to Silent Hill, leaving her to search for her own family. Angela is a very peculiar character. Her story is not known yet, but we'll talk about it as the game gives us more pieces. James makes it to Silent Hill. The town is covered in a dense fog. Every street feels like a threat. I never knew if something was gonna jump out or leave me in my paranoia. A good horror game plays off of that paranoia. It's a powerful tool when used correctly, especially when the game has sounds like this. I have been conditioned by many horror games into thinking that something's about to happen, but it never does. Silent Hill 2 does great here, but this is just the beginning. Silent Hill seems abandoned, shrouded by the fog and left to disappear into nothingness. However, abandoned couldn't be further from the truth. Silent Hill, the series, is well known for using their monsters to symbolize the main character's psyche. Silent Hill, the town, manifests these emotions into horrific creatures. Each monster represents a certain insecurity, sin, or form of trauma that the character struggles with. The first monster James encounters is known as the Lying Figure. They represent Mary's terminal illness, the top wrapped in a constricted hospital jacket, writhing in agony. They attack with toxic puke, perhaps referencing the symptoms of Mary's illness. The bottom is free, however, and weirdly they wear high heels. This could refer to James's sexual suffering within his marriage. With a terminally ill wife, he finds her unattractive or hard to look at. What you'll notice is that most of these monsters in this game have some sort of feminine features, being very provocative in nature, indicating his struggle with lust in general. In order to break down each monster, we need to understand more of the story first, so let's continue. We stumble upon a dead body with an empty matchbox. The box says, Neely's Bar. With no other clues or paths to go, we investigate said bar. Here we encounter the first of many puzzles in Silent Hill 2. Listen, I've played so many horror games with a variety of puzzles, and Silent Hill 2 has a phenomenal selection. The core idea here is there's a centerpiece with missing parts to it or a lock that needs opening. You jump through multiple hoops, shoot some monsters, stick your hand in holes that you definitely shouldn't, and eventually unlock said centerpiece. What makes it well structured is the map. As someone who gets lost very easily in these type of games, I appreciate that James actually marks the key points or explored rooms for me. It saves me so much hassle of questioning whether I check this room or not for the third time. The map layouts for each region are non-linear and very different. Multiple floors with several rooms that are not as simple as breaking the door down. The map layouts for each region are non-linear and very different. Multiple floors with several rooms that are not as simple as breaking the door down. You need to find cracks in the wall or openings near the ceiling to continue forward. The entire game makes you feel like a trapped lab rat, hoping to find an escape that's never truly there. From a mental standpoint, I think this is how James feels without Mary. He's desperately searching for some sort of relief from the past, but can never find it. South Vale is a much more open space than the rest of the game, but it plays beautifully into this funnel, claustrophobic feeling the game has as it continues. You feel unsafe in such a wide area. How much more dangerous do you think it'll be when you're exploring, let's say, a hospital, for example? I love Silent Hill's level design, and I'll talk more about it as we get to some of my favorite areas. The monsters become much more apparent after the first encounter. They'll crowd the streets, jump scare you in tight corners, and block important key items. Inside the bar, you're missing half a record and one of the buttons. It's a simple puzzle because most clues are hidden in the notes you'll find nearby. That's also a common theme here. The notes are documents revealing clues or nearby safes and whatnot. You're only missing 2 pieces to the jukebox, so a simple stroll around town will lend you to the other half of the record and the button. Mary said in her letter that she is waiting for James in their special place. James now remembers that place, the park on the lake. This could be where Mary is. Now we have a goal, to get to that park. After the jukebox eats our record, it shoots out the bartender's key, leading to the enclosed back rooms. We find a note about a car and promptly find it. The surroundings become suddenly agitated, as if the town itself is alive. Monsters spill through all kinds of places and are higher in numbers than usual. James needs to get to that park, but it's not safe now. His only option is the Woodside Apartments. So this is where the game picked up for me personally. I thought it was pretty slow at first, but now it's starting to get pretty good. One of my favorite horror games ever is Cry of Fear, and the apartments in that game were terrifying. Now whenever I explore a post-residential area, I hope for the best, and Silent Hill 2 does not disappoint. The game's about to get pretty dark now, so Silent Hill provides a flashlight for us, as well as a new enemy type. The mannequin is a horrific abstract creature with two sets of legs fused together. Unlike most monsters that charge the player immediately, they like to hide and stay still until James enters their radius, which they then attempt a sneak attack on him. They're agile, but frail. The mannequin is, I think, a mockery of Mary. Bedridden by her disease, these monsters taunt James in doing the one thing his wife can't really do. Again, they are disturbingly sexual in nature, not just by their designs, but I've noticed that they'll moan. Yeah, I don't like that. There's also the spider variants later in the game. I don't like them either. We take the flashlight from the mannequin that isn't a monster. James notices that it's wearing a familiar set of clothes. To be specific, Mary's clothes. It seems to be the last thing he remembers his wife wearing before everything began to crumble. The Woodside Apartments is a really good area. It's a great starting point to show how most levels work while still being very unique. Because half of the game are these puzzles, it's important that they're clever, unique from each other, and fun to solve. For the most part, Silent Hill 2 does great in that category. I'm used to the classic restart the generator concept, move on to the next area, so this is a really nice change of pace for me. However, you're not going to find much variety outside of this, and that's fine. Some horror games will break up puzzle sections by having some combat, a boss fight, or a chase sequence. There's really not much to do combat-wise, so it's kept to a bare minimum. As a matter of fact, I think Silent Hill 2's biggest weakness is the combat. The amount of monsters you face in this game does not justify the simplicity of the combat. I wish the combat was a little bit more complex. When it comes to the puzzles, however, they're great. In the Woodside Apartments, there are multiple points of interest that you need to solve in order to unlock the coin cabinet puzzle near the entrance. You'll slowly venture through the apartments on multiple floors, finding keys to unlock rooms or wardrobes that harbor missing items. There's even a random key on the ground over here, and for once in my entire horror game career, the protagonist does the smart thing and reaches from behind the bars. But of course, it's never that easy.
Wait! Damn it.
We know nothing about this girl at the present moment, so until we get more on her, I'll leave her a mystery. The more we uncover, the more corroded the apartments become. You reach a long hallway on the second floor where you come face to face with one of the most iconic horror game villains in history, Pyramid Head. I have been waiting to meet this famous antagonist for years, and I gotta say, he did not disappoint. There is no interaction between him and James. There's no jump scare, no animations really. Just him standing behind the bars menacingly. I actually really like this introduction. It puts Pyramid Head on another level from the other monsters. There's something different about him. He seems intelligent almost, as if he's stalking us. Now there is crucial symbolism to Pyramid Head, but we still need to find out what happened to Mary. We go into the nearby room to see a corpse watching the static television. We find a key to room 212. And of course, as soon as we exit, Pyramid Head is gone. Great! After a few more puzzles, we reach another hallway with a faint vomiting sound. Inside, we find a new character named Eddie.
Hey, who's there?
It wasn't me. I didn't do it. I didn't do it, I swear.
Hey, are you okay?
I didn't do anything. He was like that when I got here.
He? Oh, you mean the man back there? In the kitchen?
I didn't do it. I swear I didn't kill him.
Yeah, it's all right. I'm not saying that you did. Look, my name is James. James Sunderland.
Eddie.
Eddie, okay.
Eddie is a very strange individual, but he is my favorite side character. He's immediately defensive over the corpse inside the fridge, assuming we were hunting him down or accusing him of doing something bad. He mentions that someone came after him, which led him to Silent Hill. We know that Silent Hill is like a psychological purgatory, drawing in those who have committed grave sins. So we know that Eddie is here to confront that guilt, and we know that he's done something grievous. For now, we still need to find a way out. After collecting all the coins, we insert them into the chest in a specific order to unlock it. This is a really good puzzle. You have to read the poem and decipher what side of the coin is facing upright and where it's placed based on the decorative designs. It's a really clever idea. After I messed around with it for about 5 minutes, I got the key to apartment 201. Inside we find a... This is, in my opinion, one of the most disturbing yet confusing scenes in Silent Hill 2. Pyramid Head is doing what I can only describe as involuntary yoga, so I don't get flagged for this video, and he's very aggressive about it too. Pyramid Head does represent sexual aggression. He's a more masculine monster, actually the only one in the entire game. This could represent how James feels towards his wife. Because of her illness, he found her unattractive, and all that pent-up lust was directed towards the nurses or other women. Pyramid Head, in a way, is James, but he's more than just his sexual symbolism. He represents James's guilt. All those terrible feelings of resentment towards his wife have manifested into Pyramid Head. He is a reminder of his past, and ironically, that part of him keeping him sane, keeping him accountable for his actions. What actions those are exactly, we don't really know yet, unless you've already played Silent Hill 2. It's been out for like, what, 24 years? At this point, the only path forward is following Pyramid Head, so James enters the Bluecreek Apartments. The Bluecreek Apartments are quite different from Woodside. Something's not right here. Everything before looked abandoned for at most a decade, but here it's as if time has passed tenfold, and the supernatural is starting to take a hold. When James followed Pyramid Head, he followed him into a rift in reality known as the Other World. The Other World is this different plane of existence that intensifies the atmosphere around it. Whatever setting it affects, it becomes more desolate. The environment is nightmarish in nature and has a corroded aspect to everything. Now, the Other World is never fully explained in these games, but my guess is it's a shift in reality that occurs when the character is about to encounter a revelation, a breakdown, or has just experienced one of the two. Inside, you'll find one of my favorite puzzles, the clock. You'll need to find all the hands throughout the area and place them in a specific manner to unlock 3 marked doors. Behind each door is a miniature puzzle that reveals the next hand for said clock. My favorite is the moth room. You have 3 different moth species that each have a symbol on their wings or abdomen. You have to count how many there are in the room, and that's the code for the lock. James sticks his hand down another dirty hole without hesitation and finds the second hand. The other door has a toilet full of 4K doo-doo that, once again, James doesn't mind sticking his hand into. Listen, I don't get grossed out easily. I've played numerous games like this, but something about James sticking his hand down an obviously overflowing toilet of poop is revolting. But it was worth it for the minute hand, right? In one of the apartments, we encounter Angela again, and it's a strange one. We get more insight into Angela's mind. She's holding a bloody knife, one we assume she's using to fend off the creatures in Silent Hill. When James talks to her, she seems to disassociate easily and often. She still hasn't found her mother yet, but what's more concerning is what she might do with the knife now. James offers to keep it for her, but Angela has a weird reaction.
I'm not sure what I might do. No! I'm sorry! I've been bad! Please don't!
Angela has clearly done something terrible, and her only way of finding comfort for now is from her mother. Now, the way she calls her own mom Mama, especially at, I'm assuming, her age, shows signs of regression. Regression is a poor way of handling stress or trauma in real life, so we can assume Angela is not doing too well mentally. For now, she escapes and leaves James alone with the bloody knife. At the final door, we encounter Pyramid Head once more in an all-out classic boss battle. Kinda. See, you can't really fight him, he's indestructible here. There's a time limit to this fight, and you simply need to survive long enough. It's okay, I guess, because the combat is so limited, there's not really much to do here besides run around and dodge occasionally. and it's so easy to get the iframes for the dodges that Pyramid Head poses pretty much no threat in this fight. It's kinda sad, because as cool as he is, Pyramid Head is nothing here. For 3 real minutes, you must avoid him until the alarm goes off, calling Pyramid Head somewhere else. Again, Pyramid Head represents James's guilt, so him showing up is theoretically a good thing for us. It's a constant reminder to own up for his past sins and move forward with it. After the quote-unquote fight, we are back outside, heading towards the park on the lake. However, we encounter the girl again, whose name is Laura. She doesn't say much here, but there's one key line that puts an interesting twist on things.
None of your business. You didn't love Mary anyway.
What? Hey, wait!
So apparently Laura knows Mary. This can't really be possible since Mary's been dead for 3 years. Now that we have more of the puzzle pieces showing up, it kinda seems like Mary being dead for 3 years is actually false. James is starting to become an unreliable narrator, and the way the game slowly reveals that is perfectly done. When we finally reach the park, we find another character named Maria. She is the spitting image of Mary, but is outwardly flirtatious and wears more provocative clothing. You would think she's another character drawn to Silent Hill, but I'm not so sure. Maria is a mysterious character, but I think she's the town's manifestation of what James wanted Mary to be. Ever since her illness, James was probably reminiscing on his attraction towards Mary beforehand. Maria could represent James's struggle with lust for other women too. It also doesn't help that she knows about Mary as well. How could she know about Mary unless she's a figment of James's imagination? I've noticed when looking back at the footage that James doesn't really even question how she knows that. He questioned Laura, but with Maria, it really didn't matter. She tells James about another place that Mary could have been referring to as their special place. She wishes to tag along and says something intriguing.
You loved her, didn't you? Didn't you?
Alright, just...
This is the second character after Laura that questions James's love for his wife. I find it strange that some are questioning his motives, and for that, we have to continue the story. Maria is an interesting character, one that I disliked at first, but mostly because she kind of screws up the horror factor. See, isolation is a great tool in horror. When you have a companion, even one you don't like too much, it takes away from that. But what comes next is probably my favorite part of the game. We reach an abandoned theater after hearing a girl screaming inside. We find a little hole to peek through, and surprisingly, we find both Laura and Eddie. Turns out Laura was just scared by a rat on the ground. We don't know how they found each other, but it answers a question I had when I first played, if these characters at all were even real. Since they're interacting with each other, they're as real as James. Laura mentions why Eddie is running away because of the cops chasing after him. This explains why he was so defensive in our first encounter and why he's here in the first place. When we enter the theater, Laura's gone, but Eddie's still there eating ice cream from God knows where. Well, at least you got your appetite back. Much like Angela, Eddie's slow to answer, defensive, and refuses to do anything other than sit there and eat. It's a common coping mechanism in response to guilt or trauma, which, again, isn't exactly good. We can only deduce that it led to harsh bullying that may have led to something regrettable happening. At least that's what I thought at this point in the story. We follow Laura throughout the building, but she's just out of reach for us. She goes running outside past Maria, but here's the interesting thing. We never see Laura actually interacting with Maria at all. All Maria says is she saw the girl run past. As a matter of fact, Maria never interacts with anyone else besides James. This further proves that Maria is a figment of our imagination, conjured up by Silent Hill to torture us. Eventually, we follow Laura into Brookhaven Hospital. This is without question my favorite area in the game. The level design is amazing, the symbolism is heavy, and the scenery is beautiful. I mentioned that rarely does this game give you a chance to calm down, yet the first story windows are so serene with the light flooding in. It creates this golden glow that I find to be amazing. Kinda reminds me of The Last of Us 1's title screen. Laura escapes into the second floor, which we don't know why James really couldn't catch up there. He's a full-on adult, just tackle the freaking 8-year-old. Regardless, it's a good excuse to start exploring the hospital. Man, the puzzles here are great. It's similar to the rest of the game, but the puzzles are tied in with the symbolism more so than the others. For example, there's a key hidden behind this locked cabinet. There's a riddle about the nurses, the doctors, and the trees. You must find the corresponding photos, count how many there are, and that's the combination. I don't know about you guys, Puzzles like this scratch a part of my brain that needed to be scratched. I love it. You also find shotgun shells, which in any other game would be great, but horror games have a way of providing more fear the more defensive capabilities you have. The key we grab is the basement key. And there it is, the classic generator puzzle that horror games always have is finally here. We need the elevator to take us to the second floor, so we find some gas, an empty fuel can, and oil up that dirty tank for one last hurrah. It works, surprisingly, and we take the totally safe elevator to the second floor. It's here where I think the game makes a good choice. Maria's not feeling too well, so we leave her in one of the rooms nearby, exploring the abandoned hospital all alone. This makes the setting all the more terrifying because now we don't have a hooker making sexual innuendos anymore. It's now where the symbolism becomes more prominent. We find the director's office where the main puzzle is. There's a hand holding a key, missing 3 bracelets, and a shelf with indecipherable symbols. Again, I love the way Silent Hill 2 handles its puzzles. Think of it like a large spider web, where the center is the key out, but each piece adds onto this large spiral. You slowly chip away at it while dealing with a healthy amount of monsters and finding some more lore. Inside the office, we find a recording from the director.
As bold as one can be, to go as far as one needs to. I will find what it is that truly ails them, and I will cure them.
It seems reassuring that a doctor would be so determined to aid his 3 patients, whatever the cost. However, there's a weird undertone of relinquishing safety precautions in favor of that. This hospital is more than just what James sees, it's what Mary sees. This is their perception of hospitals, their staff, and their practices. Throughout the hospital, you'll find notes that break the Hippocratic Oath, notes that favor making a profit over their patients rather than curing them. Even Mary says herself, she knows it to be true. Brookhaven Hospital was also a mental asylum, and the patients were subjected to torture or, even worse, negligence. There's one case where a patient was locked inside a padded cell for so long that they busted their head open on the walls from banging his head against it. However, James is here now, and he must face his past sins, one of them being the nurses. The nurses are one of the most iconic enemies in the series, and for good reason. They have giant bulbous heads with tape over their mouths. They walk in a drunken-like manner, twitching violently. Their clothing is very revealing. James struggling with lust is a common theme in this game, like I haven't mentioned that 300 times. And due to the very nature of these nurses, it's easy to see that he lusted after one or many of them. However, their bulbous heads and violent shaking is another matter entirely. It's almost as if they're struggling to breathe, twitching to release themselves from whatever is holding them down. There's symbolism here to be sure, but I can't reveal that just yet. James makes the smart decision to crawl through this tight space, only to fall down the floor. Thankfully, he falls right in front of an open space, and even better, a bracelet is here. At this point, I decided to check up on Maria. She's doing fine. More importantly, depending on how many times you interact with her, unlocks a different ending. I didn't know about this until after the fact, but I think it's a really cool idea that depending on if James faces or runs from his trauma determines the ending. Great concept. As we explore more of the hospital, I noticed at this point that all the nurses and doctors' faces are obscured in every photo. I think James and Mary viewed the medical staff in such a negative light that they're not even human anymore from their perspective. They're just monsters without a face. It's a really neat detail to me that adds onto the horror of this area. You'll find numerous patient records detailing their spiraling mental health, their conditions, or what a profit the doctors can make from them. It's too much to talk about each subject, but just know that it provides great world building. Later on, I found an X-ray puzzle that I could not figure out for the life of me. It seemed so complicated, and usually that means I missed an obvious piece that I didn't find yet. Turns out I was right. Ironically, I found the mold remover before finding the mold-covered graph right beside the freaking puzzle. Goes to show you how idiotic I can be in these type of games. Seriously, that took me like 20 minutes. Once we place the clean graph and figure out the combination, we find the second bracelet inside. The last one is outside near the pool. It's a neat string of puzzles that involves finding certain keys to draining the pool and finding the bracelet underneath the water. Again, there's beautiful shots in this game. I had to take a moment outside in the rain because it was so calming. What's not calm is Maria is missing now. Also, Pyramid Head is back and knocks us down a few floors. Good news though, we found Laura. She finally tells us that she met Mary over a year ago. This almost makes James snap, but he quickly recovers. Still, Laura tries to run again, and at this point, I just wanted to punch her in the face. We convince her to stay with us, but she needs something first. A letter from Mary. She mentions it's in an old pipe in the room ahead. We tell her to stay back, and of course, she locks us inside. However, that's the least of our worries. Fleshlip is a disgusting mass of flesh and limbs, with giant smacking lips between the legs at the bottom. It's sluggish but can deliver powerful blows. Fleshlip symbolizes Mary's abuse towards James and her confinement to her disease. The lips are Mary's verbal abuse towards James near the end of her life. The rusted frame signifies how Mary was bedridden. Freedom was out of her grasp, so she felt caged. We fight only one, but there's actually 3 of them, perhaps representing the 3 years Mary was sick. Honestly, it's a fair and fun fight, at least when compared to the other fights in this game. Fleshlip will pop in and out of the ceiling, making distinct noises to cue in the player when to counter. Again, the combat mechanics are limited, so it's nothing like, I don't know, Dragon's Dogma 2. Regardless, what impressed me the most was the sound design. Silent Hill 2's audio is near perfection. Everything down to the music, the monsters' noises, the environmental damage, it's all really good. In terms of horror, it's solid. Our efforts are in vain because a second Fleshlip kidnaps us, transporting us into the Nightmare Hospital, inside the other world. All the symbolism before is much more clear here. The conditions, the motives, the patient's suffering. Even the puzzles show the eerie practices the doctors did on patients. Our goal here is this chained up box. We need to release the chains and find the code from nearby puzzles. I want to take a moment and voice a complaint I do have about the game here. See, as we're going on in the story, the monsters become way more prominent than I would like. It becomes more of a survival horror than psychological, and that's not what this game is about. Resident Evil is, but not Silent Hill. Instead of taking in the surroundings and absorbing all the themes here, I'm more pressed by how many monsters I have to face in each new section. It becomes repetitive and annoying very quickly. That's just a personal issue though, it's not one that puts a damper on the game as a whole. In the other world, the monsters are covered in disgusting filth. Even the nurses abandon their rusty pipes for sharp scalpels. It's a rather short section because we've already explored the hospital thoroughly for so long, we don't need to overstay our welcome. Once we unlock the box, we find the lady in the door. She needs her rings to unlock. Once we find both rings, Maria finds us and she's not exactly happy that we abandoned her. Interestingly enough, she jabs at James for only caring about his dead wife. But unlike his outburst against Laura, he seems shy to retaliate. Maria begs James to stay with her, which he agrees to. Finally, we can escape this hospital without any problems. Did I say problems? Sorry, I meant Maria because she dies here. It's a somber moment for James, and in case you didn't get the memo here, it's raining outside now. We all know that rain equals sad. In all seriousness, it really is a sad moment, and it's a quick moment of reflection within the game, and I can't get over how beautiful the rain looks here. The street lights illuminating parts of the road, the flashlight revealing the little droplets flying down, this is definitely one of the most graphically impressive games I've played. In my opinion, Hellblade 2 still takes the cake, but Silent Hill 2 the remake is easily in the top 10. I don't know about you guys, but I love the rain, and in games like this, a moment of quiet is definitely deserved. Outside South Vale, we find a payphone that doesn't work, but it pops out a note. The note mentions a key at the foot of a saint inside the park. Alright, I guess. After some exploration, we enter what's called the door that wakes in the darkness, opening into nightmares. James enters and a new monster appears. The Mandarin are distorted female figures with straitjackets covering their body and mouth like suckers. Interestingly enough, they are never encountered above ground, always dangling beneath James. They symbolize a suppression of emotions, guilt, and overwhelming anxiety. Should they fall into the abyss below. We know James did something terrible, something that had to do with Mary at this point. This monster is similar to James, hanging on by a thread of sanity. Should James lose that, he too would fall into his own abyss. This monster is a reminder of what James has done, similar to Pyramid Head. warning James to confront his sin or succumb to that guilt. His mind is fragmented. He doesn't exactly remember all the details. James says Mary died 3 years ago. Laura says she met Mary only 1 year ago. Someone is lying here, and it's most definitely James. We finally make it to the park, and Angela is there too. Again, it's a strange encounter. Unlike Eddie, Angela is so far gone that even simple conversations seem like a struggle to her. She disassociates easily and eventually snaps again, not wanting James to touch her. What we find later is a key to the Historical Society. We're about to get some more insight on the town's history. We take an exit outside Rosewater Park, and it's an easy stroll from here. I love it when games do this. I don't have any lore on what it means or how it's involved in the story. It's simply a moment of peace to see how far you've come in your journey. There's no monsters, no notes to find, just a long, foggy road. We're finally here at the Historical Society. Immediately, we're hit with a revelation. Pyramid Head stands in one of the portraits near the entrance. But this doesn't make sense. How can a monster like Pyramid Head be a part of the town's history? Is it not a part of James's mind, a reflection of his guilt and sanity? I was taken aback for a moment because this made zero sense to me. In a good way, it was a mystery I wanted to solve. Unfortunately, the game doesn't really make this clear, so I had to do some digging on my own. Remember, this town is cursed, feeding on the memories of the inhabitants who wander inside. After doing some research, here's what I found based on the Silent Hill wiki. There's a supernatural power that surrounds Silent Hill that has the ability to manifest elements of the unconscious mind. In the early history of the town, Native Americans used this to seemingly communicate with both nature and the dead. Their land was eventually stolen from them by European settlers. Because of the town's power, a mysterious cult began to form that took control over much of its infrastructure. One of the deities they worshipped is Valtiel, who serves as an angel of rebirth and a being close to God who has appeared in many forms throughout the town's history. The cult began performing ritualistic executions, wearing red hoods and an executioner's outfit modeled after the god. When James and Mary visited the town of Silent Hill on vacation, they visited the Historical Society, which contained paintings and artifacts relating to the executioners of the town's past. One such painting in particular, Misty Day Remains of the Judgment, stuck in James's mind. So Pyramid Head, in a sense, is real because he's representing the executioners of the town's past, and James is conjuring up Pyramid Head again as his own executioner. There's a lot more to this, but that's a story for another time, and it relates more so to the first game. Really, that's the biggest point of interest inside the Historical Society. Near the back, we find a long hallway that leads down into the depths of whatever this building is hiding. It takes a solid minute to reach the bottom, but when we do, it reveals an underground prison. Much like the hospital, Toluca Prison is one of my favorite areas in the game. It was first established as a prison camp in 1862 as a house for American Civil War POWs. However, it was turned into an actual prison shortly after. Disturbing practices are mentioned almost immediately. One of the paintings writes, "A prisoner choosing their way of death is their last taste of freedom." A popular form of execution was death by skewering. Not exactly the most humane form of death. Next to that painting are the town's old executioners, taking on the religious robes. James makes the smart call by jumping down multiple holes deeper into the prison. We're eventually trapped inside a room filled with giant roaches. I could not figure out this puzzle for the longest time. It looked like the blood splatters were spelling numbers, but it was hard to see, and killing the giant roaches was getting annoying. Turns out, after killing 3 roaches, 3 numbers will be highlighted on the number pad. All you have to do is guess the correct order of numbers. Afterwards, we find another long drop, and we wind up inside the cafeteria where we meet Eddie once again.
Ain't no big deal. Just put the gun to their head and pow.
Eddie?
Oh, hi, James.
What happened here? Who was that?
I don't know. It just came at me.
Okay. So he attacked you, and you shot him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. He made me do it.
Okay, calm down, Eddie. Any idea why he would do that?
I don't know. He came out of nowhere. Tried sneaking up on me in the dark. I heard footsteps, so I turned back and he was right there.
And you could tell that he wanted to hurt you.
Well, yeah, I mean, the way he looked at me, I just had to do it.
He looked at you? I thought you said he came at you.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it in his eyes.
His eyes.
He kept looking at me, making fun of me. And I told him not to, but he didn't listen.
Eddie, you can't just kill someone because of the way they looked at you.
You should see your face, James. I was just joking. The guy was dead when I got here. I got you, didn't I?
Eddie is clearly going insane, if he hasn't been already. He's as defensive as when we first met him, but there's an undertone of satisfaction to the idea of killing someone. Something I've noticed with Eddie is his way of reasoning with his guilt or past actions. He makes it into a joke or confesses to doing something awful, but then pulls back on it before things get too serious. It's a common reaction most people have to getting in trouble. Imagine if a child spilled juice on the carpet and suddenly joked about it in front of the parents without any instigation. It's a way of releasing some of that pent-up guilt without fully acknowledging your actions. Eddie is doing the exact same thing. So at this point, I knew Eddie had killed someone before coming to Silent Hill. It explains why Laura mentioned the cops. It explains his defensive nature. What he did exactly will be revealed very soon. For now, it's time to explore the prison. Inside the main block are multiple doors with varied animals on them, and near the back is the courtyard with multiple weights that you need to find. You put them on the scale in specific ways to open up specific doors. It is a great puzzle that was so much fun to figure out. Now you start with 2 of the weights. An easy test reveals the snake door is our path forward. One thing I want to note here are the noises that occur within this courtyard. I hated this when I first heard it. My skin actually crawled the first few times. I was actually impressed. It's been a while for a game to cause a bodily reaction for me. Unfortunately, and this disappoints me a lot, the sounds are followed by nothing. Nothing ever actually happens here, and it's such wasted potential. Like, have a monster jump out or something. Listen, I appreciate that this game doesn't rely at all on jump scares, but so many times throughout my journey I thought, man, this spot right here would have been an excellent jump scare. It's fine to use them, just don't overdo it. Regardless, we have a path forward now. Inside we find the electric chair, as well as a new variant of an older enemy, the spider mannequins. As I mentioned before, I really don't like them. They become a regular occurrence from this point forward, and they're just not fun to deal with. They're not scary, they're not like cool looking, they're just annoying. They'll avoid the light and crawl along the walls, waiting for James to be in range for a sneak attack. They're fast and waste no time crawling back up said walls for another attack. That's why the main area has these light switches to avoid them as much as possible. Once you find the safe spot, there's a lever you need to overload. Do that, and the whole section of the prison will go on lockdown. Yet another great display of sound design will occur. And now this is where things get a little bit more intense. Grab the third weight on the chair and leave the room. A whole new part of the prison is available now, and with it, a bunch of monsters. What I love about the prison is you don't always resort to running back the way you came. Instead, they have shortcuts that loop back to the center of the map. It's clever, and in case you missed something important, you have easy access to it now. With the third weight, we can use it on the scale to access the next room, the bowl. We're now on the second floor in Block D. James will find a hole inside the bathrooms covered in roaches. This is where you find the fourth weight and then you just kind of leave. At this point, you get the gist here, alright? And not much else happens beyond solving the puzzles, so I'll spare you the arbitrary details. The lore inside isn't really that significant either. The hospital was more important because Mary was there for her sickness. The prison could symbolize how James felt once Mary contracted the disease. He feels like his life is now a prison to both her verbal abuse and her physical disease. But that's kind of a stretch. Either way, it's a phenomenal area with a fantastic center puzzle with mini puzzles that are unique to the rest of the game. Once you find all the remaining weights, the courtyard is very different. There's a saint now visible with 6 nooses on an elevated stand. This is the final puzzle for the prison. First, you must match the weights on the scale perfectly so the sword is the one highlighted. Afterwards, the puzzle is revealed. 6 prisoners were hanged for their crimes, but 1 was innocent. It's your job to find the innocent one and pull the noose. The way you solve it is by reading the poems. The way I solved it was just kind of guessing around. I honestly had no idea how it worked. I just guessed and luckily got it on my second try. Where we end up is yet another iconic section of the game. We aren't the only ones who can enter the other world. Angela has entered her own nightmare sequence, and somehow, James is now a bystander in her own labyrinth of torment. We find an article detailing the death of a middle-aged man, a lumberjack. The cause of death was repeated stab wounds to the neck and torso. Due to the cash and valuables left behind, this was likely a crime of passion. The inside resembles a house, with maze-like hallways. This is how Angela views her own home. It's a prison to her. She can't escape it. Even when she left home for Silent Hill, she can never escape the trauma she endured there. And now we finally get to see where that torment comes from.
I'll be good, I promise. Tell him I'll be good, please.
Angela? Angela, it's me.
No, please. Daddy!
This is Abstract Daddy, a monster representing Angela's father. It's a disgusting fusion of 2 torsos bent over a bed frame, both screaming in torment. Now what's interesting is the way we see him is different from what Angela sees. We have our own perception attached to the monster's design. Think of the bed frame. It relates to Angela, yes, but more so to us. It signifies Mary's illness and her inability to walk freely. However, Abstract Daddy's symbolism to Angela is way more terrifying. Abstract Daddy represents Angela's sexual trauma by both her father and her brother. That paper we read in the beginning was about Angela's dad. She killed him in a failed attempt to escape home, and later killed her own brother by unknown means. This is why she has the knife. This is why her demeanor is so shaky and shy. She's been suffering abuse in her own home for years now, and has manifested these things into horrific nightmares. She blames herself for what happened, thus coming to Silent Hill. What's worse is that her own mother blamed her too. Her mother said Angela deserved all she had coming to her. She had no one to fall back on. Even at work, Angela was a target for sexual assault. This is her nightmare sequence, and it's brutally real. We don't even see the full effect here because we're seeing it from James's perspective. I can only imagine how disgusting it would be to view it from her point of view, which was purposely left to our imagination. If this game ever comes out with DLC, it would be phenomenal to play from her perspective and Eddie's. Angela shows signs of depression, anxiety, and PTSD. This is her story, and we are seeing the conclusion now. Abstract Daddy is an interesting boss. There are looped sections in the labyrinth that you can use to deal damage to the boss as it chases you around. As you venture deeper, the walls are replaced with flayed skin and large holes that bleed. Muffled, strained breathing can be heard, which could imply many things that I would rather not talk about at the moment, but I think you guys are smart enough to get the idea. It's terrifying. I love the symbolism at the start of this boss, and as you fight on, it becomes much more gruesome and in your face. It's a simple boss, but one that stuck with me after playing through the game.
Okay, Angela. It's okay. Calm down.
Don't order me around!
I'm not. I just... It's okay. It's over.
Don't even try.
Try what?
Like you don't know. I see what you're doing. It's always the same with you. You're only after one thing.
Angela, please.
You don't have to lie. Go ahead. Say it. Or you could just force me. Like he always did. You disgusting pig. I hate you. I hate you.
Angela. I don't know who you think I am, but I don't want to hurt you. I just want to get my Mary back.
You're Mary. Your own little Mary. At least she was. For a while.
What?
Admit it. You didn't want her around anymore.
No.
You probably found someone else.
No!
I need to find my mama.
I think it's important to mention that even Angela, who's never met James prior to Silent Hill, knows he did something terrible too. It's weird that we don't know anyone's story, but they know ours. A neat little detail I noticed was when James yells no, Angela immediately disassociates and goes to leave. This is a common response to abuse, and I think that's an incredible detail that they put here. I then proceeded to do a little dance after my victory. Inside the labyrinth, we find a twist in the plot. Maria is alive and well. This just proves to me that she's not real. Like, I called it. James is slowly losing his mind as time goes on. Notice the camera work here. James is clearly in front of the bars here, and when we get this shot of Maria, no James to be seen. Then he's right back where he was. It goes to show how unreliable James' perspective is at this point. Maria tempts James with some sensual cheek touching, but he resists for now, and leaves, promising to free her later. Now we get into the best part about this area. Angela's part was amazing, but I like the block puzzle. The block leads to 3 entirely different sections, with each its own unique level design, theme, colors, and puzzles. In order to access them, you have to line up the correct door to find the entrance. Now, instead of detailing each area and its puzzles, let me just do a quick summary and rating for each one. First is the rotten area. Roaches are covered here, and the entire area is saturated in a green tone. It's gross, and I love it. The goal is to create a lighter, finding 3 parts to burn the cloth, holding up a rather familiar bloody box. It's arguably one of the most disgusting areas in the entire game. Everything is covered in flesh, blood, bugs, unknown fluids. It's amazingly gross. I feel like a lot of horror games nowadays just kind of lean back on the gore or like on these themes because, hey, we don't want to offend anyone or we don't really want to have like age restriction. I'm just glad this game like actually gives us something terrifying to look at for once. I give this area a solid 9. Next is the desolate area. There's a light blue hue to this one, and corridors are the main layout. Underground tunnels add complexity to the others. However, the spider mannequins do bring down the score a bit, not gonna lie. I genuinely hate those enemies, they're freaking annoying. Pyramid Head is here too, and he guards the exit. A grated gate that you must chew away at with some tools you need to find. I give this one a solid 7.5. Lastly is the ruined area. Red is the main color theme, and combat is the core idea here. You go through multiple rooms with numerous enemies that you have to kill in order to unlock each door. It gets increasingly frustrating, especially when I didn't have any healing items when I began, and like I've mentioned before multiple times, the combat in this game really isn't the highlight here, and this is what this whole theme is about. I gotta give it like a 6. After the final area, you find Maria dead again. Her face is scarred, most likely resembling Mary's illness. Near the center, we find Pyramid Head's sword. James is finally confronting his guilt. The path forward will now be revealed as we carry the sword. The controls are a bit clunky, not gonna lie, but thankfully it's not a long path. When we get to the end, we find a small cemetery with a save station. A boss battle is approaching. We find a tombstone with our name on it, obvious symbolism aside, and jump down promptly. What lies at the end is Eddie once more. He's talking to a corpse, wearing a varsity jacket. He's delusional, he's angry, and has finally snapped. We have entered his nightmare sequence.
Eddie. Whoa, Eddie, it's me.
Oh. Hi, James.
Eddie, what are you doing?
What's it look like I'm doing? You fat, disgusting piece of shit, you make me sick. You gonna cry, fat ass? You gonna run to your mama? Waste of skin, why don't you just kill yourself? Well, maybe he was right. Maybe I am nothing but a fat, disgusting piece of shit. But you know what? It doesn't matter if you're smart, dumb, ugly, pretty. It's all the same once you're dead. And a corpse can't laugh!
Eddie.
What's that? You want to talk down to me some more? Tell me to relax? You're just like the rest of them, James.
No, I don't want...
Shut up! You think I'm stupid. You think I don't see it. But you've been laughing at me all along. Ever since we first met. But you ain't laughing now, are you?
You need help, Eddie.
Don't get all holy on me, James. This town called you too. You and me are the same. We're not like other people, don't you know that? Well, you're about to find out.
Eddie's other world is cold and callous, resembling his feelings towards the world and towards killing in general. He confesses to his crime, killing a dog and the owner, his bully from school.
The way you look? Yeah, I ran away after I killed that dog. But you know what? It was fun. It tried to chew its own guts up. Finally died all curled up in a ball. Then he came after me. I shot him too, right in the leg. He cried more than the dog. And now it's your turn, James.
The fight takes place in a butcher's freezer. Giant bloated meat hangs from the ceiling. This is meant to symbolize how Eddie viewed himself. Just a fat, disgusting pig. You can use them as shields from Eddie's gunfire, but so can he. The first phase isn't too bad, as Eddie will run towards James, making for an easy target. After enough damage has been dealt, Eddie will cover the entire arena in heavy fog, making it difficult to spot him. You can use his footsteps to locate his position, but he can use the meat to block your shots too. It's actually a really fun boss fight, easily my favorite in the game. The final phase has the suspended meat rotate around the room. This not only causes you to move constantly to provide protection, but the loud metallic sounds make it harder to hear Eddie. Thankfully, I play Fortnite, so he was an easy target. Even with how messed up James is, he's distraught at the fact that he just killed a living person. Monsters, that's no problem, that's different. But Eddie was an actual person who just needed help. It doesn't matter now. All that matters to James is finding Mary. We find a boat and use it to travel to our real special place, Lakeview Hotel. Lakeview Hotel is the final area in the game with some of the best puzzles. It's nice to play a game that not only has a strong start, but a strong finish. I've played too many games where it starts out great, then just fizzles out because of laziness or getting it rushed or something like that. We find Laura again, who seems much more friendly towards James now. Even after her little stunt before, James seems to reason with her like normal. She has a note from Mary, a note that was kept with her and their nurse, Rachel. It was addressed to Laura as a farewell. She mentions happy 8th birthday to Laura, and James asks the big question.
Laura, how old are you?
I turned 8 last week.
It's important to mention Silent Hill from the perspective of Laura. I think because she's an innocent kid, Silent Hill seems like an ordinary town. She never mentions the monsters or any other supernatural events. She's here looking for Mary, same as us. But because she's a kid and is innocent, everything seems normal from her perspective. She also has another letter addressed to James, but she lost it. Laura runs off in search of it, leading us to a different section of the hotel. The entrance was calm and quiet. Now we're in an environment more familiar to us. Now the puzzles are similar to the hospital and apartments. There's only so much you can do before you start repeating yourself, and that's fine. But you're gonna find keys or items to unlock different sections to complete the puzzle at the center. An interesting detail is that we get the final piece to the puzzle at the beginning and have to slowly work our way there. The item is a key to room 312. Their special place. It's an easy to navigate area because all the rooms are either closed off or lead to one-way places, usually harboring a key or something. I think what I'm most impressed about is the different layouts and variety in this game. Seriously, not one area is similar to the other. The puzzles may be the same in nature, but are stacked differently in order or deal with combinations in a different way that you would really never think about. It's funny, I used to hate puzzles in horror games. I always wanted chase scenes or jump scares. As I've gotten older, I am starting to appreciate the creativity behind these puzzles now. Now in the center are 3 spots for 3 figurines. That's the main goal here. Once you find the Cinderella figurine, a new monster appears. It's actually not a new monster, surprisingly. It's the Mandarin from before, but now it's above ground. I think it symbolizes James starting to come to terms with what happened. The trauma still resides, but at least he can face it now. The final section is one where you go completely unarmed into the basement. You leave all your belongings inside a locker, and inside you'll find 2 Mandarins guarding the pieces to this puzzle. I like sneak mechanics in games, if they're done properly. Silent Hill, it doesn't have any sneak mechanics, so it's okay, I guess. It doesn't really matter, because you can run around them if need be. Regardless, it's a horrifying area, one filled with ever-growing tension. Once you find the key to the bar, you're free. The final figurine is there, and you can complete the puzzle by aligning the tracks to lead all the ladies back home. Now we can finally access room 312, James and Mary's special place, where James can finally see the truth of what happened 3 years ago.
Are you taping again? Come on. I don't know why, but I just love it here. It's so peaceful. You know what I heard? This whole area used to be a sacred place. I think I can see why. It's too bad we have to leave. Promise you'll take me again, James?
James killed Mary. After 3 years of illness and Mary's verbal abuse in her final hours, James decided he had enough. He suffocated Mary in the same room he sits in now. He harbors a massive amount of guilt for what he did, so he suppressed that memory. James said Mary died 3 years ago from that terrible disease. Laura only saw her a few weeks prior. Both make sense in a way. To James, when Mary contracted her illness, that's when she died to him. She died physically by the hands of her husband only a few days ago. He's devastated by the truth, and so is Laura. He sits there for what seems like an eternity until the radio picks up a signal. It's Mary, and she's still waiting for him. The hotel is now in shambles, but thankfully no more puzzles stand in our way. What does stand before us is Angela, one last time.
Mama? Mama, I was looking for you. You're the only one left. Maybe then I can finally rest. Mama. What's wrong? Wait. You're not my mama. It's you.
I'm sorry, Angela. I think you were right. What we're looking for, it's not here. Not anymore.
Thank you for helping me earlier. But I wish you hadn't. Even Mama said it. I deserve what happened.
No, Angela, that is not true.
Don't pity me. I'm not worth it. Or maybe you think you can save me? Will you love me? Care for me? Heal all my pain? That's what I thought. James. Give me back the knife.
No, I won't.
Saving it for yourself. Have it your way. It doesn't change anything.
It's hot as hell in here.
You see it too? For me, it's always like this.
And thus concluding Angela's story. I love the complete contrast between Angela and Eddie. Eddie is cold and psychopathic. His response was violence. Angela feels like she's trapped in an ever-growing fire, a home that never felt safe. Her response was reclusion and depression. These are two different characters that handled their trauma in two different ways. When it comes to side characters and their plots, this is near top of the list for me. I love how their interactions don't take up too much time in the story, but are enough to pique your curiosity, and they both conclude in a great way. They're interesting characters that cross paths with us, but end differently. It's almost like James has to choose which finish line to cross, but that's up to us. We finally find Mary, or Maria, we aren't sure at this point, But the Pyramid Heads kill her and face James in one final fight. I love how James now knows who they are, and he states that he doesn't need them anymore. As stated before, Pyramid Head is a reminder of what James had done. They're there to keep his sanity and reality in check. It's time to put them to rest and finish this battle.
Mary? I have missed you so much.
I've missed you too. We can finally be together. Forever.
No.
James. Honey. What's wrong?
I'm sorry. I know you tried,
James, please.
but she's gone. I know that now.
Stop it.
And I can't just keep pretending.
Shut up! What do you want? Do you even know anymore? I'm yours. I'm here for you. So what if I'm not her? I can give you what she never could. I can be better than her. What else do you want me to be? What else can I be?
I am so sorry, Maria. I really am. But this has to stop. It's time to let it go.
No.
What?
I won't let you do this to me. I won't let you go. I can't!
It's a grueling battle, but not because of the difficulty, but because of what it represents. Maria is now a manifestation of James's conflicted feelings of Mary in her last days. He's upset, he's angry, he's sad, he feels guilty, ashamed, confused. It's a multi-phased boss fight that ends with one final cutscene. If I can figure out how to trigger it. Ah, there we go.
Mary.
Hey, handsome.
I'm sorry.
Don't be. I told you. I wanted the pain to end.
Yeah. You did. But that's not why I did it.
The truth is, I hated you. I wanted you out of the way. I wanted my life back.
If that's true, then why do you look so sad?
Mary.
It's okay, James. Here.
What is this?
It's what you've been looking for. In my restless dreams, I see that town. Silent Hill. You promised you'd take me there again someday. But you never did. Well, I'm alone there now. In our special place. Waiting for you to come and see me. But you never do. So, I wait, wrapped in my cocoon of pain and loneliness. I know, I've done a terrible thing to you. I wish I could change that, but I can't. I feel so pathetic and ugly laying here. Every day I stare up at the cracks in the ceiling, and all I can think about is how unfair it is. The doctor came today. Told me I could go home for a short stay. It's not that I'm getting better. It's just that this could be my last chance. Even so, I'm glad to be coming home. I missed you so much. But I'm afraid, James. I'm afraid you don't really want me to come home. Every time you come to see me, I can tell how hard it is on you. I don't know if you hate me or pity me. Maybe I just disgust you. I'm so sorry. When I first learned I was gonna die, I couldn't accept it. I was so angry. I struck out at everyone I loved. Especially you. And that's why I understand if you hate me. But I want you to know, I will always love you. Even though our life together had to end like this, I still wouldn't trade it for the world. Well, this letter has gone on too long. So, I'll say goodbye. I told the nurse to give this to you after I'm gone. Which means that, as you're reading this, I'm already dead. But that's okay. I'm not afraid of it anymore. I just hope the pain will end soon. So that you remember me for who I was. And not what the disease made me. I want you to go on. I want you to live. For yourself and for others. Like you did for me. James. You made me happy.
And that's how the story ends. Overall, this was a phenomenal experience. This game's themes of psychological trauma, guilt, marital issues, it's all woven together beautifully. It was scary, but more so disturbing. The themes in Silent Hill 2 are very real, and cases like this have happened before, numerous times. It's a game that challenges the psyche and manifests it into horrific experiences to the max. The monsters were gruesome, some of the most disturbing creatures I've seen in video games. Their importance to the horror and story were an excellent pairing. The side characters added a sense of mystery yet underlying tension on how their stories would resolve. Silent Hill 2 had gorgeous scenery at times to give us pause as well. It's the complete horror package that was done very well. I give the Silent Hill 2 remake a solid 9. When it comes to my Horror Quest series, we have something called the Spooky Scale, where we rate a game's horror factor on a scale from 1 to 10. Now, Silent Hill 2 doesn't focus on jump scares or chase scenes to induce horror. It focuses on the mental aspects of the human mind and brings forth nightmares. The atmosphere was disgusting, dark, and isolated. There was a healthy variety of levels to provide different types of horror, such as gore, bugs, or claustrophobia. Pyramid Head is one of the most iconic horror game villains out there, and again, like I said, he did not disappoint me. The monsters themselves are frightening to say the least. I will say the disturbing nature of these enemies are great, but I wish there were more jump scares or heart-pounding moments. Rarely did I feel like I was in danger or nervous about what would happen next. Silent Hill 2 is the type of game to make you feel disturbed by its characters and themes. I mean, compared to the previous 2 games I went over in this series, Silent Hill 2 is leagues ahead. It's not just about how heart-racing the game can get, but does it do what it wants to do well? I think that question has an easy answer. I'm giving Silent Hill 2, again, a score of 9. A masterpiece in horror. I cannot recommend this game enough if you enjoy horror of any kind. It's freaking great. For now though, that's all I have for you guys today. I am losing my voice because this recording was 43 minutes and I didn't even record all of the script. I just decided to get out the rest of it in this one last hurrah. And it was like, what, 7 pages? So yeah, but thanks for watching guys. And of course, if you did enjoy this video, be sure to leave a like and to subscribe for more content like this. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care everyone. And of course, stay safe.